Lizzo now faces claims of sexual harassment and weight shaming. There's a lawsuit filed by her dancers. Gee, here's a clip from one of them, Ariana Davis, who spoke to CBS News.
I'm so new to this industry, and for this to be my first experience is really crazy. To be honest, this was a corporate office, and she was doing exactly the same thing that she was doing on tour, immediately that would be so many HR violations.
So do we know any specifics about exactly what the
I don't think we can talk about the specifics on air. I mean, they're really salacious.
So we do know that.
There's some different things. One of them, back in 2019, they were out in Amsterdam, and she took one. So one of those dancers are really religious, if you will. So in Amsterdam, Lizzo allegedly goes to the owner of the place in Amsterdam and says, I need our potassium, she was talking about bananas. And anyways, there's activities centered around bananas that she was asking about. That's why Colleen's saying we can't really go into
at a
really
club
explain
where people
it.
may be disrobing. So
Right.
District.
And then
So this is the real thing. This is not just people complaining
So-
about the rehearsal practices or something.
So I was just out in the newsroom, and I asked myself this in this story, because as soon as I heard about the Lizzo story, I'm going to tell you what goes through my mind. I said, oh, I don't believe this. That's exactly what I said. And then I said, wait, why did I say I don't believe it? Why?
because Lizzo's a woman.
Because Lizzo has had this brand and been fighting against people and protecting those that are fat shamed, and she has this image of being, a lot of times she's ridiculed about her weight, and I like Lizzo, I like her music, I have all of these things that are positive, Lizzo. But for some reason, as soon as a story comes out where there are former employees of hers that say these things about her, automatically in my mind, I said, oh, I don't believe those employees. For some reason, we have to come to the conclusion of why we do that. That's number one. Number two, I go in to look at it. I look into it. I listen to those interviews in which the former employees, I believe those employees. And I'll tell you why. It's very simple, and she said it just there. Because a lot of times there are performers or people in the restaurant industry that you start out small and you have this idea you're going to be a big business and we're going to build up to the top. And when you're doing that, you don't have things in place. Most people don't have an HR in place for checks and balances. So therefore, if you don't have those things, there's going to be and possibly a lot of mistakes that can be made. I'm not justifying it. I'm not giving an excuse. I'm just saying what happens here. And normally in these situations, I figured it out. We believe the person in power than those that don't have the power. And most of the time, the employer has the power, and a lot of times the employees don't.
Do they have video or pictures? Or, you said you looked into it, but I haven't heard about any sort of physical evidence.
I didn't look into it that far, Colleen.
Okay. Other than, she said, and Lizzo has said, I usually don't respond to false allegations, but these are as unbelievable as they sound. These sensationalized stories are coming from former employees who have already publicly admitted that they were told their behavior on tour was inappropriate and unprofessional. What does that sound like to you?
It sounds like what that former employee said. They said that when they were on the road, if there was a HR in those cases, a lot of the stuff that was happening wouldn't have been allowed to happen. And I do think that HR at companies and corporations are very important to prevent some of the behavior that can happen. I'm sure that there are some companies out there that wish they would have had an HR in place because they probably would have saved themselves a lawsuit. So it is good when you have that in place. So in this case right here, the case forward would be, how can Lizzo move forward with this? It's either going to be A, she denies, Or B, she says, and takes some type of accountability of some of this. So that's going to be probably the road forward for Lizzo, and which would be the best. And if she does take accountability and say, you know what, I did make a mistake in this area, can Lizzo move forward from that? That's going to be the question, too.
G. Scott with Ursula at 9 o'clock on Car Radio. Thanks, G.